I'm Megan, and I serve in Custodial as well.
That's great, Megan. Nice to meet you. And
I'm Cheryl. I serve in Elevate and in Ground Zero.
Ground Zero. Well, that is great. I told Linda and Steve that it is so great, because I know you're over the age of 30. To see them working with junior high kids, that's really incredible. So then let's come up here. You folks.
I'm Jack Canifax. This is my wife, Barb, and we're First Impressions directors on weekends opposite of Stephen Pauling.
Okay, so Jack and
Barb.
Barb. So we have two Barbs, all right, and you are?
I'm Kristen, and I serve as the coach for special needs assistants.
Oh, that's great. Kristen, nice to meet you. And?
I'm Pauline, and Steve and I work as First Impression directors on second and fourth weekend, and then we help with student ministries on Wednesday nights.
Great. Oh, so like you guys are married. I thought this was your daughter. I mean, I
get that a lot.
Yeah. I get it all the time. So, Linda, we're here, you know what I mean. By the way, Wes, since you asked this to be taped, I just want to show you're right. This is a really good-looking group. I just want you to know, as you are eating lutefisk in Norway or whatever you are doing. When Wes approached me a little over a week ago about this day, he said, Byron, we just got done with you leading a training workshop for the paid staff at Eagle Brook on communication. Could you come and do something on communication for our key leaders? And I said, sure, that sounds really fun. And he said, well, actually, I don't want it to be just communication. The challenge is, how do we communicate the vision culture? And I went, that is a great challenge. It really is. And so that has actually been on the back burner of my mind since June when I started. So let me give you just a little bit of background here. I started on June the 5th, and 2 days later I sat in new staff orientation, which Dale Peterson, who is my boss, he was leading. And as most of you know, Dale has been around almost from the beginning, not quite, but about 13 years or something like that. And so Dale was one of our leaders at Eagle Brook who helped conceive and birth our vision culture. Now, as volunteers, Linda and I, we had heard the vision culture to some degree, both when we became group leaders and when we went to Starting Point, and so we heard it presented a couple different times. But when I sat in on it with Dale, it was different. And I'm not saying anything negative about the other staff who I had heard before, but as I'm going through this with Dale, it really hit me. There was something about the passion, the heart, the ethos, the DNA that was in Dale. And I said, Dale, how many staff at Eagle Brook, how many leaders, volunteers, anyone, how many could effectively communicate our vision culture with passion? And he looked at me and he said, not enough. I said, what are we going to do about it? He looked at me and he said, you need to figure it out. Literally. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity. Now I'm going to give you a little bit more of the story. I literally changed my game plan with you since last night. I went to bed feeling pretty good about the approach and all that. But by the way, Wes and I agreed that today you were my GPS, guinea pig students for this kind of training, because we've never done it before. But I went to bed and woke up this morning to, it felt like hellfire and brimstone. It was actually thunder, lightning, and large amounts of hail and big pieces of hail waking us up. And this was at 5, we lived in Blaine. It was Judgment on Blaine, I think. And I'm waking up, and it's like instantly God said, you know what, I have a different idea for you. And so I thank you in advance for letting me try out not only what was going to be new the first time, but now it's really new since 5:30 this morning. So here we go. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to talk about it at your tables. I want you to define this. What is effective communication? In fact, at your tables, talk about it this way. Complete the sentence. Effective communication is. How would you complete that sentence? All right? So we have 3 tables here, and so if we can, I don't want Merlin and Rick to feel alone, so Barb, I might ask you to actually join that table there with Rick and Merlin. But go ahead and talk about that out loud, just for a minute, and then I'm going to get feedback from you. Effective communication is what?
So maybe we'll just break down issues.
How are you?
And then we'll come up with Okay. So you know
All right. I'm going to stop you, and I can tell we have some great answers just waiting to be shared. And let's start over here. I just want to make sure I'm knowing you folks. We have Jack and Barb and Kristen and Pauline and Steve and Kathy. Is that right? All right. So let me hear from your table. What is effective communication?
Understood.
You're being understood. Okay, great. Let's go back to this table back here. Who's going to be spokesperson? Barb, why is everybody looking at you? I don't know.
And I'm not.
You took all the notes.
Well, go ahead. That was one of them, but doing it clearly, understanding it clearly, and maybe even observing them pass that on.
Oh, nice.
The next step.
Great. Anything else from your group? Okay, let's go to this group right here.
All right. Effective communication is listening, then conveying a thought or idea that can be heard or acted on in a clear and understandable way.
efficiency.
Did you open up the dictionary.com on your phone or something like that?
No, I just shared it with everybody.
That's great. Very, very good. How about over here?
Good job.
That's, I mean, we kind of bulletize that same type of thing. The mutual understanding, obviously that's clear, that is resulting in action, I guess, out of that clear communication can result in action, I should say. Gets you from here to there.
Oh, way to slip in the Eaglebrook lingo right there. But all of you are right. Getting us from here to there. What is effective communication? You've all touched on it in some way. And it goes back all the way to Aristotle. Here it is. Aristotle said this: effective communication results in an effect. That's really profound, I know. But then he went on and he explained it this way. Effective communication always results in some effect, or it makes an impact, or it leads to action, or it results in some sort of change. Effective communication has an impact. It has results. And we communicate not just to give information, but so that something is impacted, so that somebody believes differently, so that we have these results, so that there is this kind of change. You know, if somebody said, I'm going to tell you exactly where the sliced ham and the buns are located, the reason we are getting that information is so that we can find it, so we can eat it later, right? And if I say to you, you know, we need to understand how to communicate the vision culture more effectively, we might hear some of us thinking, so that what? You know, what's going to be the outcome of that? Who has a Bible? Oh, that's really encouraging that some of our volunteers have Bibles. All right. I mean actually present. If you have your Bible, too literal. Whether you have it on your phone or you have a hard copy, open it up and turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 17 to 20. And here we're going to find the answer as to why we, as Christ followers, must be more effective in all of our communication. Who would volunteer to read 2 Corinthians 5, 17 to 20? Megan, thanks.
Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God.
We are messengers of what? What did Paul say? Did you hear it? We're messengers of Christ. But what are we communicating?
Message of reconciliation.
The message of reconciliation. To reconcile all of us born in sin back to the relationship with our Creator, with our Heavenly Father, because he loves us. He wants this relationship with us. So folks, just think about it. If we truly know the Heavenly Father, if we know Christ, we're following Him, and He has commissioned us, if you will, to be ambassadors on His behalf, for building the kingdom, for being messengers of reconciliation. We have the greatest message. Doesn't it make sense? I mean, shouldn't it just cause us to go, God, help me do whatever it takes to become the most effective possible in communicating the greatest message in the universe, right? Rob, I want you to pray for us because I want to make sure we remember this moment, because you forget about everything else that we do here yet this afternoon. I want you to remember 2 Corinthians 5, 17 to 20. We have the greatest message. So Rob, pray for us as we continue to learn.
God, thank you so much for bringing us here, and you have something you want to speak to our hearts, Lord. And I ask that you would penetrate our minds and our heart with new information and new skills to be able to communicate your message of reconciliation to you better, Lord. And I just ask that you take all of us and level us up just a couple of points here in the way we communicate. So God, we love you. And as a group right now, we declare you are our Lord, our Savior. You are our Creator and our Sustainer, God. And we submit to you right now and ask you to do something great in us. I pray this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Thanks, Rob. I'm going to make a statement to you. And then I want you to look at me, and with confidence and gusto, I want you to say the first word that pops into your mind. One word only. The first word. All right? And you all say it. Don't wait for somebody else to say their first word. Steve's already laughing because you know what some of these words may be.
I'm
I
afraid
don't
what
know.
I'm going to say. That's all right.
Okay, I'm going to say it, so listen carefully, and then I want you to respond with one word. Here we go. You know what? As volunteer leaders for Eagle Brook, we must become more effective in communicating the vision culture.
Amen.
Okay, one word. What word comes to your mind? I'm going to say it again. You know what? We need to become more effective in sharing the vision culture.
True.
True?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Passion.
How?
How? Okay. I'm going to say that the word is why. Why should we? Why should we become more effective? We just looked at 2 Corinthians 5, 17 to 20, that we're messengers of the greatest message. But I'd like to take just a few minutes just to share with you from my heart what God's been doing with my life, even as a volunteer for a couple years at Eagle Brook and now serving on staff. There's several reasons why I'm so convinced it's absolutely essential on why we must be more effective in communicating the vision culture to other people. First of all, our vision ignites our passion. Think about that. Our vision ignites our passion. Now, when you think about our vision culture, you know, one of the categories is purpose. And I love that because the purpose that God has for the big C, the big church, for all of His followers, all of His children like us, is wrapped up very, very simply in Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 to 40. Does anybody know what passage I'm talking about? Go ahead and say it.
Therefore love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And the second commandment is love your neighbor as yourself.
Absolutely. They were trying to trick Jesus as to what was the greatest commandment. And Jesus summed it all up by saying it's very simple. Love God, love others. That's our purpose. And so that is part of our vision culture. And the reason we need to get more effective in sharing that is because our vision is going to keep igniting our passion. And as we share it effectively with others, it's going to ignite the passion of the people we're leading and serving alongside with. People who don't even know about Eagle Brook yet, but they will in the next 10 years. It really sort of rocked my world all over again. Just this last week, leading up to the election, there was a report that said that surveys now show that 1 out of every 5 Americans, 20% of Americans, do not believe in a higher power. 1 out of 5. And so we can start to break that down with the demographics of, living here in the Midwest and Scandinavian country, but we're no longer in Scandinavian country in and of itself, are we, here in the Twin Cities? Our vision culture ignites our passion when we realize what's at stake. The more I love God, the more that I allow His Spirit to draw me into intimacy with Him, you know what happens? I learn more of His heart. And when I learn more of God's heart, then I'm truly drawn to love others, to fulfill the second greatest commandment. And so the longer I follow Christ, the older I get, and I'm going to say in a renewed way like never before, just in the last year since I've really become involved at Eagle Brook. Though I was in vocational ministry for many, many years, I'm all about loving God and loving others. Do you know that right now there are 36 million teenagers in the United States who are not within the radar or scope of a church that teaches that Christ is the way to heaven? By the year 2020, that's only, 7 years away? Only 1 out of 5 American teenagers will be living with both biological parents at the same time. When you think about what our vision is for the next 10 years, folks, it's incredible. And so we need to learn how to communicate our vision culture because it will keep igniting our passion for loving God and for loving others. On the street in Blaine, Linda and I, we live in the Lakes area of Blaine, and on our street, got to remember, we're not in the urban area, we're in a nice suburb area of Blaine. We have, on our street alone, 7 different countries represented. On our street alone, I have friends who are Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and some Christ followers. Just on our street. And so I get very passionate about continuing to love God and love others, and that's why we need to really learn how to communicate our vision culture, if there's so much at stake. Another reason why I want to challenge us to remember why it's so important to communicate our vision culture is because our vision culture focuses our mission. It focuses our mission. Now, Jason Strand did a great job before of reminding us basically to keep the main thing the main thing. Because when you think about what our vision culture is, you remember, we don't have a vision statement. We have a mission statement, but we don't have a vision statement. We have a vision culture. But when you think about what our mission is, then we go to Matthew 28. And in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20, it's the last words, as Jason reminded us of before, that Jesus gives us. So usually when somebody gives you the last words before they leave, they're very, very important. And so basically, what did he say? What was the first word? A very proactive verb. He said what? Go. Go. Go and what? Make disciples. Where? Of all nations. That is our mission. And so our vision culture really keeps us focused on what our mission really is. And that is, say it with me, empowered by God to what? To reach others for Christ. Absolutely. Just about 3 weeks ago, Linda and I were serving on our after-service prayer team at Blaine on a Saturday. And a young man by the name of Jack, he came up to me, and it was his 3rd time at Eagle Brook, and he wanted prayer. And so I prayed with him, and then he noticed that I had this staff badge on, and he said, "Oh, you're on staff here?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, good. Can I talk to you about something else?" And I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Have you guys ever thought about," and literally he went through about 3 or 4 items on his list. For an example, he said, "Have you guys ever thought about, like maybe on every 3rd weekend, gearing the services to Christ followers? You know, some really deep teaching, you know, for those who really want to mature as Christ's disciples." And I said, "Sure, we've thought about it." And then he goes, "Okay, have you ever really thought about that every Sunday night, get all the bands together and we have a gigantic worship and healing service every Sunday night?" And I said, "I can't answer that. I don't know if that's ever been thought of here at Eagle Brook." And so if you had been in my shoes, what would you have said to him? Give me some ideas. Interesting. Absolutely. And yeah, don't be Don't be afraid about saying the wrong thing. What might have you said to him?
We thought about it, and we thought if those things would reach people for Christ, we might pursue them further.
Yes. Great answer, Paulie.
I'd ask him, do you know our mission? Do you know why we're here? Like, what have you found out? Like,
I asked him that too. And he really did. He didn't know our vision culture.
yeah.
And in fact, he didn't even know our mission within the vision culture. And so we started talking about that. And so once I started explaining that to him, in just a couple of minutes, he looked at me and here's what he said. Boy, this church is really serious about reaching people for Christ, isn't it? I said, yep. And he said, well, I'm going to have to think about it. He said, I don't know if this church is going to be for me. And I said, you know what, Jack? It's okay if it's not. I hope you check us out some more because I love your passion and your energy and all that. I said, but it isn't for everybody. I said, but we are convinced that God has given the church the mission of reaching people for Christ. And so when we picture everything we're doing within our vision culture, it focuses our mission. It keeps bringing it back right here in front of us. Well, he walked away, and I don't know what's going to happen. So then the next day, I was visiting with our next-door neighbors, Tom and Stephanie. Tom and Stephanie are both divorced. They have 7 kids between the two of them, and so they have a blended family. They haven't remarried, and very fascinating. They both are extremely turned off to anything to do with organized religion. And as I think about our mission, Linda and I pray for Tom and Stephanie every single day. And we're so excited to be part of a vision culture that has focused us to the mission so that in our world, on our street, we're thinking and praying about Tom and Stephanie. And now we're going to have them over another time now prior to Christmas so that it's even more natural to invite them again. So that's another reason why we need to become more effective at communicating the vision culture is because it focuses our mission when we talk to people. Here's a third reason. It's because it drives our passion. Think about it. You and I, as leaders at Eaglebrook, and we all are in this room, we need to learn how to communicate the vision culture more effectively because we're in this thing called this 10-year vision campaign. It drives, our vision culture is driving our expansion. It's driving our expansion for the future. And so, Nate, when you got up and talked about one by one, I was getting all passionate all over again because I'm so excited that that mission, vision culture, it is driving the vision to expand to 5 more campuses in the next 10 years. Just yesterday, I was at the Blaine Target Eye Clinic. And I hadn't been there for a while, and I went in to order more contacts. And I walked in, Courtney, the main person that works in there, she looked at me and said, we haven't seen you for a while. And I said, well, yeah, I had enough contacts. And she goes, I know the last time I talked to you, you were trying to maybe change jobs because you were traveling all the time. I said, yep, that happened in June. And she goes, really, what do you do now? And I said, well, God gave me, because I've had a little bit of spiritual conversation with her before. I said, God gave me an incredible opportunity to work at a great church called Eaglebrook. She goes, yeah, I've heard about it. And now you've got Brooke, who is 24 years old. She's going to Ramsey, is it Ramsey Junior College? Is that your college?
Ramsey.
Okay, Noka Ramsey. And she is sitting about 10 feet away helping some dude pick out his frames. And so she turns and she says, Eaglebrook, I have a friend who goes to Eaglebrook, and she says, I need to try it. Now, I've had a conversation with Brooke before. She's told me about her party life. All right? And so I said, really? That's a great idea. And so then the conversation continues. By the time I walked out, I gave Brooke my card, and I wrote Linda's and my phone number on it, and I said, we're normally at Blaine. I said, you are right. Your friend is right. Come visit us. And she goes, yeah, I know, but I live way up in North Anoka. It's really a long ways. And so I walked out of there. What do you think I'm thinking about? God, help us to get 5 more campuses. May someday we be more in the Coon Rapids, Anoka area because there's people like Brooke who need Jesus. And you know what? All I've done in the last few minutes is I've shared from my heart what the vision culture means to me. And I hope you got a little bit of a sense that it's a part of who I am. And that's what I want us to get today. It's not about coming up with this perfect formula to communicate the vision culture. It's like my experience with Dale when the first time I heard him share it and teach it. When our vision culture is a part of who we are and our relationship with God, and as we abide with Christ every day, then it's very natural for us to have conversations. In fact, in a little bit, we're going to start talking about some practical helps, if you will, on how we might be more effective in communicating the vision culture in a 5-minute conversation. All right? But before we get to that, I want us to talk some more and to kind of highlight or discover, so where are we at? What are our needs as far as communicating the vision culture is concerned? And so here's a question for you to talk about again at your tables. First question. Can you think of any other reasons, and I know there's more, but I want to hear yours, on why we need to become more effective as leaders in communicating the vision culture? We need to. Why? Talk about it at your table. Can you think of some other reasons? Maybe it's more here at Lino for you and your role. Why do we need to be more effective in learning how to communicate the vision culture? Any other reasons? Talk about it at your table and then we'll get some feedback.
One that springs to my mind is just the students and why would the parents trust us? Why would the parents trust us with their kids? Our leaders become what are we built on? What are the, what are our values? And for parents to see this is really well thought out. Jesus is, there's a lot of the vibe that I've heard is, oh, well, they're a mile wide, but they're inch deep. That's not true. And when you really understand the foundation that this is all built on, and that's what we're driving people is to that kind of values and those kind of, that parents go, okay, that's something I can be sold out for. So I want my parking lot volunteers to be able to say that to a new parent. I want my connectors to be able to say that to a parent. Oh, no.
I know
let me tell you what we're about. So,
well into
so it just can speak into people's lives when we're not there to do it.
I think it's time to build on that trust of it's people's assumption that you don't want any part of our so really, I think the vision culture helps us separate. People are used to this organized religion. All it stands for, what their experience have been, or that's what their assumptions are. What church is all about. So not that. You can find whatever we do, just so one knows it, because it's not a big deal. It's not. I think where you're a CEO, communicating with a person, assuming
It's firing up like
bad thing about
like rallying and all on board, all on the same ship.
That person is excited about it. If you don't give them that energy and that excitement, they are going to see that it's transforming their life. If you're not going to be curious about it,
It gives us something to look back on. Should we do this or should we look at benchmark?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Well, I know all those people really feel like this is, it's just a book that they say, so thank you.
way better than it used to be. Because our prayers, when we first started, it was held up here and then we're raising 5 people showed up. If that's,
whatever it is that they're talking about doesn't line up.
All right, folks, I'm going to stop you. I love what I'm hearing. I'm hearing bits and pieces, but I just love all the energy and all the talk going on. So let me stop you right now, and maybe some of you, if you're inclined this way, jot down what else the other tables are sharing. So let's hear at least one more reason from each table. Why is it so important that we become effective in communicating the vision culture? Let's start with this table right here.
Well, we had several good reasons that came out, and I think it's, I think more or less, it's so that maybe volunteers are, able to have more conversations because we have so many people coming through the doors. I mean, when we came to this campus from White Bear in 2005, we were busting at the seams of 3,000 people. Now we're at 16, 17, 18,000. We have to have a better, effective, and a bigger army to talk to people coming through the doors, or we miss them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that is, when we think of, especially about the next 10 years, it isn't just at Lino, it's at every single campus. Because out of these campuses, we believe God is going to stir up, for example, some key volunteers who are going to be part of a launch SWAT team, to go and start these other campuses. We believe that out of the volunteer world, it's going to be contagious. More people will volunteer. We believe that we're going to find people who need to be doing this vocationally. Excellent. How about right here?
I can use this one. It brings unity, and you use it as a benchmark. Where an idea comes up, does this line up? Does this line up?
Perfect.
Yep.
Great. Coming back to it, really about focusing our mission. I love that it lines up. Very good. How about this table right here? Steve, Megan, Martha, who's going to talk?
To summarize, it creates ownership. It drives how we do things, and it empowers our volunteers.
Great. It empowers them. And would you say, when you say empower, is it similar to what Steve and this table were saying? Yeah, it's almost contagious then at that point, isn't it? Speaking of contagious, let's go to this group right back here.
Wait, what?
What was the question?
Give us another reason why we should be able to become very effective in communicating vision culture. Has it all been said?
Well, Nate started out right away with, he wants the parents to be able to bring their children and trust that we're going to take care of it. They understand that we're not an inch deep. They understand that this is well thought out, and that our foundations are firm and strong. And then somebody referred back to, organized religion. This shows that this isn't what they typically expect to see or hear. Energy and passion attract people. So what you were just saying about it becoming contagious, that would be true. And it sets the banks up on the river. It clarifies who we are.
Love it. Absolutely. We get that momentum going and keep the momentum. Absolutely. I hope you don't miss this. The reason I'm spending time with you thinking about why is it important that we become effective is because I'm convinced that unless we're really motivated in our hearts, in our belief system about why something is so important, we won't take the time or follow through on the discipline to learn how to do it. We've got to have the why, all right? So now it's a gut check time. This is going to be a little bit more personal at your table. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, 1 being you can't find an Eagle Brook campus. Right. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate yourself personally on how effective you feel you are right now in communicating the vision culture to others. 1 to 10. How effective are you personally in communicating the vision culture to others? All right? So just real quickly, just like I'm going to give myself a 5 because I think when I look around the room I'm average, or whatever, however you want to do that. But go ahead and answer that with your tables right now.
I feel like I have a really good window on it. When I start with, how to verify this. Like how I cover the whole thing, because there is so much that you can pack in here. So I feel like I know the layers, I feel like I know the fundamentals, but it's how do I put this
Depends on the good side or bad side. I feel like a 7 would be better. Just be able to make it a story and not a process. Doing it at one so when it's done, you don't know.
Yeah, just trying to get
Instead of
Which I thought you did a good job.
I love that one. It's
Get creative.
I still have the call thing over there.
Did you
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's like everybody.
Because I'm kind of
So much more to grow on the 5-minute thing. So often they had something not so Rowan's good at asking questions.
I thought we didn't want it, but I know that
What did you want to know? And then let me go ahead and speak. Because I can say very So let me give you just a word or two about
Okay, I'm going to stop you right here, even if you haven't all shared your scores, all right? It's okay, at least you have a flavor. And now I want all of us to focus together, and I'm going to get some feedback for the whole group at the same time.
question again?
Pardon me?
What number? That's right, it was a reading.
Right.
Just double checking.
Just double checking. Yeah. I want to find out, I'm going to take a quick survey. How many of you said you were between somewhere a 1 to 3? How many of you felt you were a 4 to 6? Majority. 7 to 10. Okay, very interesting. What did you learn? Just give me a couple quick observations from people at your table in your group scoring themselves and giving their rationale why. Give me some observations. What did you pick up, Merlin?
I think one of the things these two had said was about tailoring it to the person you're talking to. It was kind of where that person is at and knowing how to apply it. They're asking some questions to find out where are they coming from, what part is it that is important to them, and starting from there.
Perfect. Good. Yes.
Our biggest thing is our time, because you only have an X amount of time with your leaders to be able to share the stuff. So to try to do it in your small group huddle time, it's really difficult. And I sat with these guys last week when they were doing the vision culture with their coaches, and I'm like, that is such a great idea. But it's once again having that extra time to do that. It's just finding the time to make everything work. And they're been established for a while. Elevate's went through a lot of changes this past year. Ground Zero's just coming up in Lino. So it's like you have so much tasks at hand to be able to focus on vision culture. So that's why we feel we struggle. But then I said, a lot of times we maybe go back and actually do it through the emails, which hopefully filtrates down to the coaches, which filtrates down to the leaders, and hopefully to their children, and it's tough. It's so tough.
Cheryl, those are some great practical examples. Can I just stop right here? Thank you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because my wife and I, we've experienced what it means to be key volunteers for several years. And so, again, thank you. When you said time, I'm thinking not just the time you have access to your teams, but the time that each of you, give. It's really amazing. And so this is the Army, Steve, that you're talking about. This is how the battles are going to be won as far as building the kingdom is concerned. Do we have any observations over here?
I wanted to share what these guys said. They had all mentioned that there's almost like when you're grafted into the vine, when you're like surrendering and you're really letting God speak to you and you're kind of more plugged in mentally and spiritually, it's easier to cast vision. And when life pulls you and distracts you, it gets harder just to be passionate and communicate it effectively. I think we all put ourselves on a sliding scale,
because depending on our obedience, it was like, oh,
yeah.
Some days it's just flowing from me, and some days it's, we're struggling.
Yep. Okay, let's do this real quick. Cheryl, you just said time, all right? Give me some quick feedback. What else keeps us from being effective in communicating vision culture? Time is a barrier, a challenge. What else? What else is limiting us, keeping us from breaking through and becoming more effective?
I think just knowing how to do it in 5 minutes. Like, it's so big. There's so much to cover there. How do I make it 5 minutes so that they're like leaning in versus like, seriously, stop talking, you know?
In sales, you know, we always tell people, if you're going to tell somebody, get your 30-second commercial prepped, because you might, you know, that's about all you have to get to the next minute or 2 minutes. And you know, I think one thing that came up here is the resources. Knowing, I think everybody who rated themselves at this table probably rates themselves a little bit higher now after we remember that these resources are available. We all know about them. That we probably feel more comfortable, you know, being able to have those conversations, knowing that these are in our back pocket.
Yeah, the closer look is my main thing. So if anybody ever asks, this is what I go to. And the wonderful part about it is that it's written so clearly, and I can say, this is your copy, just take it home with you. And then if you have questions another time, you know, you can ask anybody, but I'll be here. I'll be here. So.
Here's what we're going to do, because a couple of you already ducked out. This is a good segue. Nate says, it's tough to converse about vision culture in 5 minutes. But after you take a 5 minute roughly, okay, we'll give you 8. Let's be back here at 10 to 2. Hit a restroom if you like, grab something to drink, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do a little practical work on helping us be effective in 5 minutes. All right? So let's take a little break.
So Kathy, do you have flashcards today?
No, we don't.
All right, first let me double check. Let's see, Nate and Rob would know this. Wes told me that this goes till 2:30.
Yep.
Correct. All right. Yep. Just want to pace ourselves here a little bit. Remember, we've never done this before. You guys are great. I'm having a blast, and I just want you to know this is a huge contribution you're making to our leadership development department and to all of Eaglebrook, because we want to get a handle on helping staff and volunteers to communicate the vision culture. So thank you so much. All right, we spent the first part focusing on why it's so important that we get more effective in communicating the vision culture. Now that we're going to finish up by focusing on how. How can we do that? In fact, I want to tell you this. I'm convinced that by the time we're done with 2:30, that all of us will feel a little bit more effective in communicating the vision culture, at least a little bit. How did you say it? Ramp up just 2 points or something? Up a couple points, all right? I think we're going to get there if we really focus hard this last 35, 40 minutes. And here's how we're going to do that. I want us to think about 2 disciplines that if we consistently use these 2 disciplines, I believe that we will become more effective in being able to communicate, to explain the vision culture to others, even in a brief conversation. And if we get more time, wow, we'll be amazing, right? So Nate said 5 minutes. What if you get 8? I mean, it'll be, you can take an offering after 8 minutes.
Receive an offering.
Right, here's the first discipline. And I gave away all my markers, so I'll write it up in the book. Here we go. Thanks, Jack. First discipline is this. Sorry. Prepare with head and heart. If you and I are going to become more effective in communicating the vision culture to others, it takes some preparation. And there's 2 ways that we need to consistently, regularly prepare. First of all, with our head. That is the knowledge of the vision culture. It's the content, right? I mean, if we don't really know it to start with, you know, it's not going to become even a part of our DNA and a part of our heart. So let's take a little quiz. Let's find out. I'm going to give you guys about 2 minutes. So as a table, as a group, you have a blank sheet of paper and a marker. Here we go. Return the marker. And I want you cannot look at any published material. I want you to draw as much as you can of the vision culture pyramid. Draw it and fill in the key information in the next roughly 2 to 3 minutes. You can work together. Go. The vision culture pyramid. Cultural pyramid of vision.
Markers on paper. Is it by layers? I thought it said.
We got our visual aid.
Mission of reaching others.
I know.
What we do.
I know.
Yeah.
And then, okay, that's why I started. And I know it's like,
Yes.
yep, you know, you wanted to focus and
Yeah. 10 seconds. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Transformation.
So
now you want
That is what we want people to become.
that's the what?
Of course.
What become?
You saw the cheat sheet, huh?
It's okay. Do the best you can.
I'm just taking on it.
I think this is the
you know what?
Really fit in here.
Right.
We're going to be the training example. That's why we need more training.
Yeah.
But what's the bottom one then?
I'm perfectly good.
Yeah, but what's that one in the question? Yeah, we are. But no, we already said that.
What we believe.
Because there is one there. I know there's one next to it, but because they're all like.
No, we don't want it. You need to tell us.
This is who we want to become.
Oh, there you go. You really do keep it up.
Feel better about yourself.
So, and this was.
No, it is funny.
Okay, you got seriously 1 minute max, and then we're stopping no matter how far you are. 1 minute.
The goals is behaviors, right?
We actually don't do that.
Grace is our
All right, that's it. Let's stop. This will be fun.
Overachievers. These are geniuses.
But before we go on, I need each of you to sign your name because I'm turning these into Bob Merritt later.
We know you won't look at them.
We know he won't look at it.
I will go speakers on ours and they'll look.
All right, since we have 3 paid staff and a board member at that table, you'll go last. The expectations are high. All right. Cheryl, in your vulnerability,
We were vulnerable.
Cheryl was so vulnerable, she goes, we're going to be the example of the great need for training. All right.
Cheryl, you took the class.
So Cheryl,
I know, that's the best, and I just had training last week with these guys.
all right.
You would think I remember.
So Steve, I'm going to ask you to stand, and Cheryl, you can stand, and hold this up so we can see it, and then Cheryl, you can explain what you have. Very briefly, very briefly.
See, Rob was great. He was a
cheated.
two-table team.
It's a great.
Let's see what you have. Show us what
All
you
right,
have.
so we have our basic foundation, which is the 9 core beliefs that we have. The values, purposes, the mission, and strategies. And then the 5 Gs are worked in here. And,
Where are the 5 Gs worked into?
oh, seriously, you can put me on the spot.
Oh, no,
Under
well,
the values.
very good. All right, all right.
Girls there.
Okay.
And then we do have our target, which Bob has discussed on stage.
All right, that's great. Let's give them a hand. Good job. Okay, let's come over here to this group real quick. Let's see what you have. Just highlight it for us.
All right.
She's taking over.
Just highlight it. Here we go.
Highlights here, the 6-tiered pyramid. These bottom 4 things never change. It's built on the beliefs, the 9 core beliefs of our church about Jesus Christ, about God, people, church, the Bible, etc. Those feed directly into our values, which are based on the 5 Gs: groups, growth, grace, gifts, and generosity. And we also make goals that are measurable to see how our value system is. That feeds into our purpose, which is relationship with others, and leading them toward a relationship with God, which feeds right into our mission statement, which is empowered by God to reach others for Christ. And again, these things never change. We will always have this as our base of our pyramid. The 2 things that will always change are strategies and our goals. Our strategies involve transformation, ownership, and relevance. And where those 3 come together in the Venn diagram is where our focus is, and that becomes our hedgehog concept, our focus that we don't stray from. And that also feeds into our goals, our big, hairy, audacious goals, aka BHAGs. And these things will always change based on the things below it that we're measuring, including our values, things we'll die for, things we'll defend, and the things that we'll discuss.
Wow. Now, Steve, share with everybody what you shared with me. What have you been doing the last few weeks?
We have been casting this vision to a lot of new coaches, not a lot of new leadership in our organization that have been coming up and that we call it, well, God has called, I guess I should say, to step into this role. So we've been going over this quite a bit.
That's great. And here's what I want to point out. This first discipline is to prepare, all right? And so you guys, obviously, you felt pretty prepared because what? You've been preparing the last few weeks to teach this to new coaches. That's great. Let's go to this group right here. Somebody stand up and somebody explain what you have.
Kind of reiterate what other people did already.
Yep, that's okay.
This is by far the neatest.
Oh my goodness! Wow!
Kathy's good on your team.
Are you essentially an art teacher?
No, but I'm a former teacher. And I'm all about icons and that sort of thing. The vision culture starts with the 9 core beliefs and values, purpose. We won't repeat, but the symbol of the cross.
Interesting. That's something new and specific. You actually brought in the picture of being restored in relationship to God and others. Very nice.
And the mission powered by God to reach others for Christ, and those things never change, and these things are the ones that change. And then we have the filter that Ego Brook uses by which they make decisions about programming and weekend services and ministries. and that involves an interlocking circle graphic with relevance, ownership, and transformation, and the sweet spot being in the middle in order to maximize our impact in what we do at Eagle Brook. So
That's
that's
great.
it.
Good
And-
job.
And
Oh.
all of you
Yes. Practical application right there. All right, the far table, wait. You can just highlight.
We want to thank
Is there
you for
anything?
the very fine marker.
Great marker.
Are you serious? Is that all it could do?
That was all it could do.
I've worked really hard.
Good job.
So, the only thing I would throw on here that we added is under the 5 Gs of grace, it's the importance of measuring both attendance of people who are coming as well as the number of yeses, so that we are intentionally creating an opportunity of bringing people in our doors so that we have more opportunity to reach lost people. Invite. Yep. And
Otherwise we have to-
everything else is the same.
Everything is safe. Let's give them a hand also. Could I get some whiteboard markers back? Let's see.
You want a green one?
I might need the flip chart one too. Thank you, sir.
That's a Sharpie? I think that's a Sharpie right around.
Wow, okay, let me make sure I put it in the right spot. Okay, very good. So what you see here, we have talked about the importance. Oh,
That's our marker.
Dale Peterson, my boss, has mentored me. He said, never put it in a place where somebody could use it again. All right. So, prepare with head. That's the knowledge. That's the content. Okay, but the other part of our preparation has to be with our hearts. Tell me, what do you think I mean by that? Merlin.
I think it's really about how it applies to our lives that means something to us. For instance, the little church we came from had 150 to 200 people, and I'll bet if you'd asked them, why do we exist, you'd have got 200 different reasons. Here, when I consider, what is it we do, I should say.
Right.
Here, if you ask that, you almost in unison get everybody saying, empowered by God to reach others for Christ. And that's, in my heart, it makes it so important to know this because it gives me a reason for even believing in God and doing His work. So I think it's just what personally it does for you.
You took the word out of my mouth. That when we know the content, the head part, we have to. I'm serious about this. If we need to be abiding in Christ and praying that God's Spirit will help us personalize our vision culture, internalize it. Because Merlin is giving a great example of how God has personalized it for him in his life. That's exactly what this is about. And can I tell you that as much as anything, I'm trying this out today, that if you'll remember this, you'll eventually be able to communicate something fantastic in 5 minutes, is that it's one thing to have the head knowledge, but if we're willing to do what it takes on a supernatural, spiritual level to let it be part of us right here in our hearts, it's gold. It's kingdom gold. Let me give you a true confession. As you know, Dale Peterson is executive director of the EBA, the association. It's really exciting. We have another, I think it was 24, 25 churches in 2 new cohorts this fall. And so about 40 churches we're working with, and so I serve alongside Dale to coach these churches in the EBA, and so I've started doing some of the teaching. And initially, I am looking at Dale's script, and after 2 to 3 weeks of seeing him do it in a masterful way, I started realizing, Byron, you idiot, you are trying to mimic Dale with the script. Now, I'm going to stop and say that it's really important. I mean, in a church of 20,000, 30-some thousand at Christmas time, we need guides, we need handbooks, we need manuals, because we have an army, as Steve said. But when you see the script on teaching here, and this is wonderful, it says, now say this. Maybe some of you have been using it, now say, and we got to do that. I understand that. But if we're truly going to be effective as leaders, and that's what you guys are, it has to become such a part of us. And so when I'm thinking about Dale's script, I'm going, Byron, you're trying to stick to Dale's script too much. Just absorb it in your head and then make it your own. Personalize it. And so once I had that aha moment, I mean, now I am it flows for me. I'm passionate about it, and I'm confident that I can teach it and communicate it. So keep those details in mind. That's the only color we have, all right? So how about if I just underline it for emphasis? There we go. So we have to prepare it with head and with our hearts. Here's the second discipline. Present with focus and application. Now when you think about this, I want to draw a little line here from heart, our heart, that we get it, that when we are meeting people or communicating to people, it connects to the focus. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Would somebody help pass these out? In fact, I heard Cheryl mock me and say I need a cheat sheet. So just grab one of those.
This would have been handy.
Look at Jack.
Jack's got one in his book.
Jack's got one that fits in his little book. That's incredible. All right. So since this is being taped, Wes, thank you. You're my buddy. Thanks for doing such a nice job as you prepare this. Now, let me give you a disclaimer. You can, if you so choose, just ignore the second page. Initially, when Wes and I were brainstorming this, I was going to try to teach you some more specifics about communication. And so I'm just going to say this, that if today's session, if we get 10% effectiveness out of this, and if Wes so chooses, maybe sometime in the future I can come back and we'll focus on learning effective communication for whatever you entail in your role, not just communicate vision culture. So that's just bonus, all right? So here is the cheat sheet. You have it in front of you, all right? But if we are going to present with focus and application, let's start first with the focus. When you think about what I did with you so far today, I started off by challenging us as to why we need to communicate the vision culture more effectively. Do you remember that? So when I was challenging you as to why we need to communicate the vision culture more effectively, was I trying to motivate you, or was I trying to equip you? You're saying both, and I bet I know why you're saying both. But just technically, because I was telling you why it's so important, equip? Really?
No, motivate.
Motivate.
How many of you say motivate?
I think it's funny. I'm always wrong when he asks.
How many of you think I was trying to equip you? Because I've done this for a long time, here's the deal. I was motivating you. I was telling you why we need to do this. You know, I was trying to persuade you, to touch you emotively. But I do believe some of you felt equipped, okay? Yeah. Because it made sense. You're going, oh, wait, I could do this with my team, with my staff. You know, I can just, yeah, I need to motivate. Okay, good. I can walk out of here realizing how important it is to motivate those I work with. I get that. So now what I'm doing is that we are looking at how we can communicate the vision culture more effectively. And I told you that what we're using are two disciplines. This is a how. Now, as we walk through this, at the end, if I said to you, now did I just try to motivate you or equip you? The majority of you would say equip. Some would say motivate. And I'll tell you in advance why some of you are going to say motivate. Because I'm not doing this. I'm not going, you know what's really important if we challenge and teach our teams how to communicate.
We would kick you out.
Yeah, it's passion. I mean, you can instruct, you can coach your coaches with great equipping. You can enable them, instruct them, teach them. But when you do it with heart and passion, they're motivated at the same time. All right, so with that in mind, now I can explain the focus. There are only two kinds of communication. Here's the first one. It's why communication, and the second one is how. It's impossible to come up with another type of communication. All communication in the world is one of the two. Either we are trying to persuade people as to why they need to believe, why they need to change, why they need to learn how to communicate the vision culture more effectively, all right? Or we are communicating how to do something. We're equipping, we're enabling, we're teaching, we're instructing. All communication can be categorized as either why or how. So what I want you to start thinking about in this moment, when you present the vision culture to someone or a group, think through in advance, what is going to be my focus? Am I going to try to motivate them as to why it's important to know the vision culture? Or am I going to teach them how the vision culture works? Very different. Very different. However, this is for extra bonus. If you're going to teach them how, right here, which I am doing right now, my opening part of this little training session, I was teaching you why. I was trying to persuade you, motivate you, why it's so important that we learn these two disciplines, to prepare with head and heart, and to present with focus and application. Now, what you see on that next page of handouts, I decided, scrap it, we don't have the time. I want to focus more on the vision culture, so I'm going to give you a tool. I'm not going to teach you how to get there, maybe at a future date. But right now, I just want to give you a tool. Here it is. Man, I wish I had a different color. It's why, all right? Look at this word. Reasons. How. Questions. Because in your role as leaders, basically, you are either trying to motivate your teams as to why the vision culture is important. So you're going to want to give them what? Reasons why it's important. But then you want to give them a handle on how to do it. You want them to be able to explain the vision culture. You want them to know how to tell somebody else. And so the very easiest way, in the way our vision culture pyramid has been laid out, and if you look at your cheat sheet, may I suggest this, that you teach them how by answering questions, because that's how it's laid out. So don't look at your paper. Okay, right now, everybody look at me. Let's try this out. When you start at the bottom of your pyramid, the foundational part, it's our core beliefs, and then you add the next layer, and that's our values. Those two together, what's the question associated with those two levels? Who? Who are we? Who are we? In fact, who are we? We define that by our beliefs and what we value, our behavior. Okay, now go one up. You have the purpose, right? And so what's the question associated with purpose? Why? Why? Why do we exist? When God teaches in His Word, this is why I'm building the kingdom. To love God and to love others. We're going to restore the relationships because of love. We're going to deal with that sin problem. I've got all these messengers of reconciliation that I'm developing. All right? So to go one more level up, our mission, empowered by God to reach others for Christ. What's the question we use? What? What do we do? All right? Now, move up one more, and we have strategies, right? So what's the question associated with that? How do we do what we do, right? And then the very top one, our BHAGs, our goals, this is what?
Where are we going?
Yes, it is where we're going and when are we going there. Where are we going and when are we going there? So now, if that's my simple suggestion, that you can walk out of here with the tool. When you are thinking ahead, let's say you're going to coach your coaches. Choose your focus in advance. Do you primarily want to give them reasons why they need to know the vision culture? Reasons why they need to communicate the vision culture to the people they lead? Or are you going to teach them how to communicate the vision culture? If that's what you want to do, if you want to equip them, then you are going to answer the questions, because the questions are the most easily memorable for us or anyone to understand or to start to assimilate the vision culture. Who are we? Why do we exist? What do we do? How do we do it? When and where are we going? All right? So, to put this into practice, here's what we're going to do. I need a couple of volunteers. Let's see. I'll just define it in advance, because we're going to work now on application. We're going to do some role playing. Okay? I need somebody, first of all, to volunteer to role play with me a certain scenario of somebody attending Eaglebrook. Who would be the first volunteer? Nate, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to ask one of our volunteers.
Pauline.
Thank you.
Part of volunteering is
that. Now I need one guy who's going to also volunteer.
Rob.
Get me Rob. Steve.
Which one?
Which one?
Yeah, oh yeah.
My husband.
Steve, are you going to do it with me?
Oh, sure.
Okay, you can sit there for a little bit. We'll let Pauline go first. All right. So Pauline, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come up, and I'm going to have you play a woman who actually, this has really happened just 2 weeks ago. A woman came up to my wife, Linda. We used to serve as campus experience directors at Lincoln. And this is a fairly, this is an attender who's actually been around Eaglebrook for probably 2 or 3 years. Okay. And here's the question that she asked my wife. Can you tell me, why shouldn't we be having like a women's ministry? Oh. Okay. Okay. And so, except I'm going to be the woman, and you're going to answer the question. All right. Hi, Pauline. I know that you're a key volunteer here at Lino. Can you tell me something? I've been getting together with a bunch of other women here. We love Lino, we love Eaglebrook and everything, but we just have a lot of needs, and we enjoy being together. So can you tell me, why doesn't Eaglebrook, in fact, we would love to have a large women's group start meeting. So is that possible? Could we do that?
Well, that's a great question, Byron. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your women's group and how you're meeting together and kind of how you're working.
Boom. Love it.
Well, what we're doing is that right now there's about 12 of us who get together, all right? And we've been told by somebody else that we just need to just think of it as a small group at Eaglebrook. But we would like to start opening it up to the thousands of women here at Lino campus so that we could really start some women's movements and conferences. So could we do that?
Well, I hear the heart in what you are trying to do, Byron, and I think that's great because it really goes along with what our mission is here at Eaglebrook, to reach others, and it sounds like you're really looking to reach other women. And so I think there's a way within your small group to reach out and find out if other people are in a small group, try to connect with them. And we're not opposed to a bunch of different small groups connecting together and doing a large type of group event themselves. It's not something maybe necessarily that we would put together here for you, but we're not against a bunch of small groups coming together and collaborating on something together. But it really sounds like you're getting a lot out of your women's group. Mm-hmm. And I think to maybe challenge your group, maybe to break apart, become leaders, bring other women together into groups, and within those small groups, I think you will reach and become that group of women who can really follow our mission to reach others.
Okay, great. Let's give her a hand.
Some big shoes.
Hey, Steve. I'm a new coach, and I know you're like a sort of a guru leader volunteer here, and so I was just wondering, can you help me? I'm trying to figure out how to explain, just in a nutshell, our vision culture to the volunteers that I'm recruiting. Could you help me out there? How could I do that?
I mean, explain it to your current team or your team leads.
To
core volunteer level or team lead level?
The lead level, because some of them, they're really struggling with it, and it takes so long, and we've heard it in starting point and all that, but, I'm just wondering, how do I communicate the essence of it to them? What's the most important part?
Well, I guess the most important part would be probably talking about all the different stages in our pyramid. Start with the beliefs and work up through the values and the purpose. And we actually have a really great brochure. Yes. Well, first of all, maybe it even starts back a little bit further. At the beginning of this brochure here is the whole history of the church, and so kind of get ingrained with the history of the church about how it grew and how everybody kind of came together, and there was groups of them that persevered and kept going. And then you go on and you can walk through the 9 core beliefs. There's Bible references here for our 9 core beliefs. 3 about God.
But okay. That is really good. But here's what I find myself sometimes in these situations. I'm grabbing a cup of coffee in the lobby with a couple members of my team, and they want to talk about vision culture, and I have like 5 minutes. So what would be the most important part of the vision culture for me to share with them?
I would probably say the most important part of the vision culture to share was, first of all, you can actually grab this really quick. It's in the rack over here.
Oh, okay.
The really important part, I think, is probably our 9 core beliefs, what we really stand for. And working through those 9 core beliefs, about 3 about God, 3 about the Bible, 3 about...
But wouldn't that take more than 5 minutes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's give Steve a hand.
Yeah.
All right. Here's what I want to wrap up on. Here are our beliefs. I could have just grabbed one of your sheets. Here's our values. Here's our mission. And here's our strategies. Okay? I can't spell. It's Greek.
Purpose. Beliefs, values,
purpose,
mission.
Thank you.
Strategies, goals.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Here's the part I want you to see. Steve, thank you for that. Because if somebody asks you, if I'm trying to explain the vision culture to a new attender, or somebody who's really interested in volunteer, or to some of my team members who are kind of struggling with understanding it, what's the most important part? Don't be afraid to disagree with Steve. Would you start with the beliefs? The other Steve says no. Why not?
I'd go right for the mission.
You'd go for the mission. And we had you on the spot here. Okay. So tell me, why would you go for the mission?
Because everything surrounds the mission. Everything is judged, and everything. The mission is measured. That's what we measure. Yeah.
And so I'm just going to say that in my experience as a volunteer in the last 3 years, that I'm going to say that that's exactly right. If there's one place to start in the vision culture, if you just have a 5-minute conversation, know how to answer these 2 questions. Why do we exist, and what do we do? Because in 5 minutes, if you are able to connect with a new volunteer, an attender, or a team member who is just sort of muddling his or her way through this, if you take them back to the purpose and the mission, and I'm going to go with Steve there, if they're trying to understand, shouldn't we be doing more? All right? So then what you can do is that to flesh that out in another conversation is that you can start to go this way and you can start to go up. That's why if you start with the purpose and the mission right here, then you can go either way depending upon the application for that person. Steve, you had a great observation earlier. You said that when you're communicating, you need to ask them questions to find out where he or she is coming from. What's their bent? What are their needs? Absolutely. So it starts with that. And then I'm going to also, because I was having fun with you guys, I was passing out brochures, that when we end a conversation where either we're giving the reasons or we're answering the questions, always think application. What's the next step with the person I'm having this conversation with? Am I going to say, hey, you know what? Have you ever been to Starting Point? I encourage you to come to that. That's when you get to really understand it all. Or can we meet again next week in between services just outside the cafe? We'll go from there. Have you visited our website? You haven't. Another opportunity. And then do you know Kathy? Kathy has a boatload of colored brochures. So always think application when we're wrapping up a conversation about the vision culture. Application that fits that person based on how you are reading he or she. So one last emphasis. On one hand, you know, we could come up with this long formula. But I want us to try this. Think focus. If you want somebody to know why the vision culture is important, give them some reasons. If you want to teach them how the vision culture works, answer the questions. And if you think that simplistic, you can be powerful, you can be profound. Because that's why when you go there, even though you understand the big part, you know how to really get it in your heart? Simplify it. I'm going to give reasons why, or I'm going to answer the questions how. And it becomes such a part of you that you can have a conversation led by God's Spirit with anyone based to meet his or her needs. And we're out of time. I feel like we need to continue this more often. So seriously, would you do this? I really mean this. Thank you for being guinea pig students today. I invite any of you to give me feedback direct or to one of your staff people or to Wes when he comes back and he watches this and all that. Because we truly are committed to figuring out a way to teach and train thousands of volunteers to get the vision culture, why it's important, and how it works. Why and how. And you know what? We're going to be so much more effective because, as Steve said, we need this army if we're going to really accomplish this 10-year vision. Right? So would somebody just volunteer to thank the Lord for our time together? We pray first. Rob, thanks.
Well, Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. God, we don't even know how to comprehend that in its full scope. And you've given us this mission here to reach others for Christ, God. And I love how Jason said that we're only doing as good as a church as we are individually, Lord. So I pray that you would fill us with passion and new abilities to go out and lead the way in reaching our friends and our family and our coworkers for Christ, God. Give us confidence in our faith. Give us confidence in who you are, and also confidence in how to portray this message of our vision culture, God. I ask that you would just cause great unity among everybody at our church, particularly our leaders, God, and help us to practice this so that it just flows from an outpouring of who we are in our heart, God. And I thank you for this room. I thank you for everybody here, and I pray that our relationships would be just blessed throughout the day here and tomorrow also. Thank you for Byron. And I pray for our leadership at this church, God. Please guide them, give them great ideas, give them energy. I know Scott right now, God, it's hard for him. He's the head leader here, and this is a big deal. So I pray that you would just fill up all of our leaders at our church and give them wisdom and understanding, God. Thank you for all our volunteers, and be with us today. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, guys.
What time does the ham and bun line open up?
That's tough, man. He's putting on the spotlight.
I was actually kind of upset